Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex or Nuznuz here, and today's video is going to be episode 3 of the Poor vs. Rich series. Now, if you don't know, in this series we compare gear setups for a certain boss, and we see if you really need high-level gear to PvM, and we also look at how much expensive gear actually affects PvM in terms of kill speed, profit, and everything like that. So this episode is going to be about the newest boss, Kerapac, and it's going to be in normal mode. Now, I considered doing hard mode, but I felt it would be too difficult seeing as I haven't really practiced solo much and haven't gotten any solo kills yet. And if I were to duo or trio this, I'd have to convince my partners to use the same very cheap budget gear as me, which I wouldn't want to put them through that. So we will be doing solo normal mode Kerapac, which I think more people can relate to anyway. So we're going to see how a super expensive setup compares to a very low budget setup. So if you're enjoying this series, make sure to subscribe so you can get more episodes right when they come out. And it would be amazing if you could leave a like as well if you like this sort of content. So let's get into the different setups. So first, we're going to take a look at our expensive setup. Now, this setup was actually possible because a viewer was kind enough to lend me the new Tier 95 Staff of Armadyl that just came out, and he lent it to me to use for this video, so thank you so much, you know who you are. And now for this setup, I tried to get a ton of expensive mage gear. We have the 4.5 billion GP Staff of Armadyl, of course. We've got full Elite Tectonic with the best in slot perks like Biting 4 and the whole gambit. We've got Reaver's Ring, which is really good at Kerapac. We've got Blast Diffusion Boots, we've got Cinderbane Gloves, we've got 2 Rune Pouches, Essence of Finality with a Gothic Staff, we've got a Red Thor's Grimoire, Seismic Wand, full Elite Tectonic like I said before, Luck of the Dwarves, and then we also have the Tier 99 Mage Prayer. Now the Tier 99 Mage Prayer costs 700 mil to buy, so of course I was going to count that because it is a prayer, and I feel like that should count, same with perks and stuff like that. So in total with perks, prayers, all the gear, we have an estimated 7.5 billion GP for this setup, and a big portion of that is, like I said before, the Staff of Armadyl, which is insane. But nonetheless, this is a very expensive mage setup, and I'm pretty optimistic, and it should be a lot of fun to try out and play with the Staff of Armadyl, but I haven't maged in a while, so I could be a little rusty. We will just have to see. Now, if we move on to the budget setup, I tried to go really cheap compared to other episodes, and we shall see what we can do with this. So for our budget setup, we have the Polypore Staff. Yes, I'm using a Tier 75 staff. We're going to be using it because it's just really cheap, and I didn't have enough dungeon tokens for our Chaotic Staff, so I thought this would be better anyway since it's tradable. And then we have an Arcane Stream Necklace from Dungeoneering. We have Blast Diffusion Boots. We've got the Celestial Hand Wraps, which are pretty cheap. We've also got a Ring of Vigor. I do have a Virtus Wand with the Planted Feet perk in our inventory as well. And in total, the gear is around, I would say 20 mil or so. We've got Precise 6, Equilibrium 4 on the staff, so just some basic perks. So this setup is going to be really interesting. I haven't PvM with such low level gear. Well, probably ever. I didn't really start PvMing at all until I had like Tier 85s or Tier 90s, so it's going to be super cool to see how a low-level gear setup like this does on a newly released boss. So now we're going to look at how each kill went with each setup. So with the high-level setup, the kills went pretty smooth. I had done some kills before with range gear, and this was pretty comparable. I was still learning when to use the new Armadyl Staff special attack, and I still needed time to get my rotations down since I haven't maged honestly since Raksha was released. However, it was pretty easy to skip most of the attacks with just pure DPS, and I ended up averaging around 2-minute and 10-second kills, which wasn't too bad. Like I said previously, mage is something I just haven't done in a while, so I'm sure with rotation practice, you could easily get under 2-minute kills with this setup, if not better. I was basically not eating that much at all, and I was easily able to soul split a lot of health up, and I did use a Ripper Demon and spam Spiritual Prayers potions, and I just tried to deal as much damage as possible. Now, if we move on to the budget setup, things went a little differently. So the big problem here with me using the budget setup was, of course, just the damage. Now, the less damage you do at Kerapac, the more attacks you have to deal with. So basically, I wasn't able to phase Kerapac quick enough and had to deal with the Lightning Rain special attack, which basically put lightning all over the arena and you need to surge through it and avoid it. It's probably the mechanic that's most annoying at Kerapac, and I never really had to deal with it much using my high level setup in duo hard mode or in solo normal mode because I just DPS'd too much and avoided the mechanic. But with this budget setup, I did have to deal with it a lot and I died a few times. Now, one thing I felt myself missing a lot was the Essence of Finality for Soul Split. And of course, being able to use the Gothic Staff special attack. I feel like I talk about how much I miss the EOF in every Poor vs. Rich episode, but it's just true. It's such a good upgrade, even though it's kind of expensive, it's just so good. So I ended up averaging around 4-minute and 5-second kills during our time with the budget setup, which felt pretty long. However, I am using gear worth 20 mil, and I was able to actually do these kills with a Ripper Demon, which was a nice surprise that I didn't have to bog down my kill times even more with a Yak. So let's go look at some statistics now. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the death cost for the high level setup and the budget level setup. So for the high level setup, we had around 3 million GP in death costs, which for how expensive that setup is, it isn't that horrible. Now for the budget setup, it was only around 300k in death costs, which is super tiny. And I know it is free death cost right now, so depending on when you try Kerapac, if you use a budget setup like this, you'll lose considerably less when you die while learning. Alright, so now we're going to try to figure out the estimated GP per kill at Kerapac. Now, since Kerapac was just released, we have no idea what the drop rates of things are, so this is a really big estimate, and it could be completely wrong, but I wanted to try my best. So basically, the 3 rare drops that you get, the Greater Concentrated Blast Codex, the Scripture of Joss, and the Kerapac's Wrist Wraps, I basically estimated what I thought the drop rate could be from everything I've seen from my own personal experience from past bosses. So I assume that the two, the Scripture and the Concentrated Blast, are 1 in 512 in normal mode, which seems like, you know, could be a normal drop rate, and then the wraps are probably way more common, probably double as common at 1 in 256. So I kind of estimated that these would be the drop rates. They might be, you know, off, but I just wanted to do an estimate for this video. So as you can see, we have 97k a kill, 146k a kill, and 70k a kill that's added on from the unique drops to every kill. And for the normal loot, well, we don't really know that either. I went from my loot video where it was about 800k a kill. However, the drops have kind of dropped a lot, like Hydrix bolt tips have gone down in price since then, so I rounded it down to about 600k a kill. So in total, the normal mode GP per kill, our estimate, just an estimate, is 913k a kill. I'd say you're probably looking about 800k to 1.2 mil a kill is probably the range of normal mode Kerapac. So now that we have this, we're going to calculate how much you make for each setup. Alright guys, so looking at the money made for each setup, we have that magic 913k number that I came up with for the average loot for each kill, and for the rich setup, including banking time, we got 24 kills an hour, times 913k is 21.9 million GP per hour. For the budget, we got 13 kills per hour including banking time, times the 913k, that's 11.8 million GP per hour. However, if you look at our rich setup, we actually ended up using the Grimoire, which is very expensive, like 8 mil an hour, which, I mean, that was overkill, but I kind of wanted that setup to be overkill. We used the Essence of Finality, which has charges. We used a lot of runes for the new spells. We had Tectonic, we had Spiritual Prayer Potions, Ripper Demon. We probably spent like 12 mil an hour at least for the rich setup. And for the budget setup, I probably spent like maybe 2 mil an hour, if that. So, you know, we definitely spent a lot more for the rich setup. However, if I didn't use the Grimoire, it would have been more like 6 mil spent, which would have made us more. But yeah, let's get into the final conclusion. Alright, so what's the conclusion here? Well, honestly, I think if you're doing normal mode Kerapac, a budget setup is probably fine, if not better. Now, I wouldn't use something like the Grimoire at normal mode Kerapac. I wouldn't use super expensive pocket sled items. I would say if you can get a setup that can spend around 4 mil an hour, 5 mil an hour in supplies, that is probably the best setup. You don't need to go overkill. A super high level setup, if I did ranged or something like that, it's just probably not worth it at doing normal mode Kerapac. Now, hard mode Kerapac, you have a chance at the Armadyl staff pieces, which are billions of GP, so it probably definitely is worth the extra cost. But for normal mode Kerapac, I would think of it something like Nex, or maybe like a hard mode God Wars 2. You don't need to go super overkill with, how much you're spending, Hydrix bolts, stuff like that. Budget will do just fine. Now, you don't have to go as budget as me, spending 20 mil on a setup, but if you spent 150 mil on a setup, I think you can get around maybe 3 minute kills or so, and maybe spend 3 to 4 mil an hour, and you'd probably be in the sweet spot of making as much profit as you can at normal mode Kerapac. So yeah, I thought this was an interesting episode. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it below, and also let me know in the comments, what boss do you want to see next? I hadn't made an episode of this in about a month, so I am looking to make some more in the coming weeks. So let me know, what boss do you want to see a poor versus rich episode on? Pretty much any boss. I'm not going to do like super low level bosses because it wouldn't make much sense, but elite dungeons, Telos, Nex, anything like that, let me know below in the comments. And yeah, subscribe for more videos, and thanks for watching, guys.